Hi everyone, welcome to the Knitting Machine Course channel. And today I want to show you how to start on a waste yarn, but the most important, I want to talk about why it's actually important to start on a waste yarn. Because for me, in the very beginning, it was very tricky. I saw this method in the manual, sometimes I saw it in tutorials, and I never could understand, like, okay, we have so many ways of starting knitting just from the very beginning. Why do we need to start on waste yarn? And after some experimenting, I understood why do I actually need to start on the waste yarn, and I would describe two main reasons. The first one, sometimes we need to have open loops of our main yarn, and that's the only way how we can do so. We need to start on the waste yarn, and after that switch to the main yarn and have these open loops. For example, if you want to make a lifted hems. But another reason why to start on the waste yarn, because of the placing of weights and what weights are doing with your knitting. And this I will try to demonstrate now. So I will take and work some needles, and I will start just with E-wrap method. So imagine that this is my garment and I'm not going to use waste yarn. And now I place yarn in carriage. I also need to put my brushes down so the knobs in a waving position, and I will make a couple of rows. And now I will place weights. And make few more rows. Okay, here of course I did not do very talented job in placing weights, but you can see the overall idea which I wanted to highlight, that these weights are deforming fabric. They make loops bigger, pull them, and overall deforming. So that's maybe not what you want to have in your final garment, and maybe what you would prefer to have all these deformed loops on a waste yarn rather than on your main fabric. Now I will show how to start on the waste yarn. I will take and work a bit more needles. Let's see this number. And what we need to do, we need to bring from the position D every second needle in the position B. Somewhere here. Next, we take our waste yarn, place it in carriage, in the yarn guide, and after that, place the yarn above the needles. Here, two important nuances is that brushes should point down, brushes should be in the waving position. Secondly, the tension, you need to check the tension on yarn so that yarn should not be loose. It should be under tension. And with this position, we can make a first row. After that, second row, and we can place weights. here is very important that the yarn is not being caught by weights, so it have to be loose. Brushes can go up in the position O, and I will just make a few rows on the waste yarn to show how to switch to the main yarn. Okay, now I'm ready to switch to the main yarn. I will remove the waste yarn from the carriage. I can cut it. I can also do not cut it and place it aside, and later just release the yarn and recycle it basically. For the last row, we can use so-called ravel cord, or how I call it, slippery cord. So it's a very special thread which you can find in accessory box of your machine, or you can buy it separately. So I placed it in the same way in the tension guide as normal yarn, and I'm placing it into carriage in the yarn guide, and I'm making the last row with this cord like this. After that, I can place this cord separately or just aside, and take my main yarn and place it in the carriage and start knitting. In this case, our main garment will have open loops at the bottom, and you may need this if you, for example, making lifted hems. So I will just make a few rows with my main yarn. Okay, so of course, just for demonstration purpose, I made a few rows. I also will cut here my main yarn. You can see here I have a certain problem that this ravel cord finally attached to some loop here, and I will just remove the swatch now from the machine. Small weights. You again can look at these deformed loops, how everything is big. And to remove this waste yarn from my main knitting, I need just to pull this slippery cord this way, and they disconnect. Of course, this is not a proper garment, it's nothing, but I hope you understood the idea that this ravel cord is actually very handy and very easy to remove. If you don't have this ravel cord, it's not a problem. It's not a problem, and I can show you how to disattach them if you don't have this cord. So let's again start with this fast method on a waste yarn. So half of needle in position V, brushes in waving position down, yarn in a carriage, and the other yarn is above the needles this way, and I'm making a couple of rows. Placing weights, and I'm making a few rows. Again, you can just place the wasted yarn aside to recycle it, or I will cut it here and start my swatch with the main yarn with a casting on. So it's not a problem, you can just move all the needles in position D. If you need to have a finished edge of your garment and not open loops. And you can just apply any method you want for the casting on. For example, I will do just with zip wrap. So I'm placing my yarn in a yarn guide, brushes in position O, and I can make as many rows now as I want. I will make just a few. So again, you can see that weights hanging on the waist yarn, they do not deform my main swatch. It's very neat and good looking. So now I will just cut my yarn here and disattach the swatch. And now we don't have a ravel cord in between, but we still can disattach the waist yarn from the main garment rather easily. So we take scissors, and you clearly see this loop of waist yarn. It's actually a very good idea to always take waist yarn of a contrast color to your main yarn. So just double check that we have only one loop and make a cut. Now on the other side we have still some leftovers of the main of the waist yarn, and just pull it. It goes a bit less smooth than ravel cord, but still it goes, and you can easily disconnect. And here we already have a closed edge because we cast it on.